our our punt return record was wiped out um within the first few minutes. So
Yeah. On a negative 4 yard return, by the way. That like it was a negative play for Alabama. So we can can we hold on to that and say no one has returned a punt for positive yardage against Brent
there we
Thorson?
go. There we go. There we go. I like it.
Welcome to My God a Podcast. I'm Jim Wood. In this episode, John Powell and I review Georgia's 41-34 loss at Alabama. We talk about our experiences on Saturday and what stood out to us during the game. As always, remember to check out the newly redesigned MyGottaPodcast.com to see our latest merch. You can follow us on social media at MyGottaPodcast. Finally, if you need help with your website or your online presence, head over to workingwebmedia.com/dogs. Now, let's join the conversation in progress. All right, JP. So, the longest winning streak, regular season winning streak in the history of the SEC comes to an end. Um, usually kind of start off with a just as we predicted kind of joke. I will say by the end of it, it wasn't, I mean, obviously we predicted a win, but we predicted kind of like a heavyweight fight. Certainly didn't look like it was going to be one in the first quarter. But by the end of the game, it was.
Yeah, I would have to say that if we went back and looked at the analysis, ahead of time, we did not have, I did not have a Rocky heavyweight fight in mind. I didn't think that we were going to be playing, a Rocky heavyweight fight against the Russians or whatever.
Right.
Uh, what's his name in that movie? I can't remember where he gets his butt whipped for a while and then
Ivan
finally,
Ivan
yeah,
Drago.
Drago. That's what I was. Yeah, yeah, uh,
uh,
yeah. It didn't look it didn't look great for a while. We watched the game from a friend's house. Carter and I did, and we were in there, and he was like making. He's a tech grad, and so he was making jokes like, "I wonder what other games are on."
yeah. My dad texted me because I've got a couple of things that I'll admit that I texted people during the game, but like I was texting with my dad, when it was 28-0. I was like, I was just kind of like dumbfounded, didn't know what to say. And he was like, well, at least like my heart rate isn't out of control like it usually is during a Georgia game. So yeah, that's kind of how it was.
Yeah. Not great, Bob. Not great.
Not
I think
great.
that was another quote that his wife was like, "How are you feeling, John?" Um, not great. Not great.
No,
Um,
no.
yeah. Uh, Basically, like everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. I mean,
Yeah.
to sum it all up, to sum the evening all up, our punt return record was wiped out within the first few minutes. So.
Yeah. On a negative 4 yard return, by the way, that like it was a negative play for Alabama. So we can can we hold on to that and say no one has returned a punt for positive yardage against Brent
There we
Thorson?
go. There we go. There we go. I like it. I like
So we're gonna move the goalpost just a little bit. I feel like that's fair. I feel like that's fair. Other than that, I was gonna say you mentioned where you were watching the game. We did watch. So we usually watch like on the porch. Um, we did it inside. We had to watch inside because we couldn't be outside. Well, not couldn't. It was a pain being outside with Munson. So a lot of stuff happened after we recorded last week. uh,
it.
had to take Munson for surgery unexpectedly on Wednesday of last week. He was scheduled for one for 2 weeks out, but we had to move the date up. So that happened, and then we had the hurricane and all that fun stuff. So like school was canceled Friday. Munson, we were dealing with his stitches and everything, and so he's not supposed to be exercising, moving. And we had one incident where the dog next door was outside and he took off barking at him. So he was already munsoning. So we had to watch the game inside. We did do Panda's famous bean dip, so we had the bean dip. Lily was at homecoming, so we did have that. The dance was still on, and I was supposed to be texting her updates by the way during the game, and we got down 28-0 so fast I kind of forgot and like texted her at one point. I was like, sorry, you don't want to be following it anyways. She's like, it's okay, I got updates on my phone. um, but then the only other thing is, we didn't do the pregame run because everyone was like, don't do the pregame run. So we didn't. And Kim told me in the morning, like when we didn't, although she didn't really want to do it either because she was getting some flack from her friends. Um, but she was like, if Georgia loses this game, like we now like we have to run. She's like, we're gonna have to run like every Saturday, like for the rest of our life. And I was like, so I now have to do a Saturday run with Kim in perpetuity, apparently. We did try to reverse the mojo by we really did. I know like Boss Dog asked on Twitter if we really went for a run at halftime, and we did. It was a very short one. We did like a half mile. It was like the half mile loop around our block. So we did do that. I mean, who knows? Seemed to have helped.
It was a second half performance.
It was a second half performance.
I
So
mean, I packed up an entire wardrobe change, which I did execute a little too late.
yeah.
I remember sitting there, it was 28 nothing, and I was like, oh shoot, I need to go change. I should have changed earlier.
I did.
So
We did change it. I changed it to halftime after the run. I ran just in like what my game day attire. Um, it was very hot and muggy outside. So we got home and changed for the second half. So yeah. Mm. But yeah,
yeah, Carter and I watched the game at a friend's house, and that was yeah, that was fun times. It was good. It was good. It was good, enriching time, but it was not ideal to be in the house with someone that is actively rooting against UGA. But he was pretty quiet most of the time.
got it.
But
Got it.
our the running joke was, "Hey man, there's still time."
Yeah.
It's early. There's a lot of football left to be played. But he was saying it. He was saying it facetiously. Every time they would score, he's like, "Don't worry, man. There's plenty of time left."
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, turned out there was. It was. The only my major regret from like online interactions is never tweeted out the Kirby calm the F down gif. I think we all could have used that in the first quarter, myself included. Even though apologies to Hunter and John because I think I kind of went off on them in the text thread at one point because I couldn't take negativity because I was so negative and I was like, I need everyone else to be positive around me. So
Yes.
sorry guys, sorry guys.
Someone be positive so that I don't jump off a cliff.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it was definitely a brutal first quarter. Like, I mean, literally the worst start to a game for a Kirby Smart team, right? Like this is by far the worst
I mean,
because
yeah,
in the end, had we won, which if you'd have told fourth quarter John that if you'd have told first quarter John that fourth quarter John was going to be in a good mood, like
yeah.
I would
Right.
have said that's insane.
Right.
And it would have been insane. And it would have been a historic insane because no top five matchup like that had ever had that big of a comeback. And it would have been the biggest comeback in I think UGA history too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. The biggest that um, I know there was that Outback Bowl one, but I would say regular season. I think so. I think so.
Yeah. It would have been definitely the biggest comeback in the history of college football between two top five teams, I think is what they were talking about.
Yeah, and it just changes. It changes so much. Like, I mean, just like through the flow of the game, right? Like, well, first there was the game day. I think you called it like Saban's retirement party. Like, game day was just kind of weird.
Game day
Um,
was so weird, man. Like,
yeah,
we can back up and talk about that too. Like the Dave Matthews commercial just threw me for a complete loop. My whole mojo was like wrecked for the game for the day. When I saw that commercial, I was like, what is happening? Why is Dave Matthews on a mountaintop sunset, tinged in crimson, playing a piano slow song? And then all of a sudden, it's just a montage of UGA versus Alabama, a historic rivalry,
right, right.
which we've talked a little bit about that on the preview. That this is not a rivalry, guys. But it was literally just B-roll footage of Kirby Smart and Nick Saban, and they showed Kalen DeBoer one time for like a split second, and it just had this vibe of. I texted you, I was like, I hope we wreck Nick Saban's retirement party.
Yeah,
Like his wife was the guest picker.
yeah,
Uh, you know, they showed him in that booth in the suite more often than they showed Taylor Swift on the NFL game. Like
yeah. Yeah.
It was crazy. It was crazy.
Yeah. It was weird. And like I was, and like early on, like things that were going through my head. I mean, when they jumped up 28-0, I was like, was Saban holding Alabama back? Like, and like I think Wes Blankenship tweeted like, the only thing I've learned so far is that it's harder to replace Stetson Bennett than it is to replace Nick Saban.
I didn't see that. That's
Oh, yeah,
hilarious.
that was a good one. That was a good one.
That is a great tweet. I need to go find that one and tell them kudos.
Yeah, yeah. So, but that, I mean, that, like,
I
that's definitely something I texted people was like,
I would say
was,
that
Saban holding them back?
I would say that the actual tweet should have been it's harder to replace Brock Bowers and Lad
Mm,
McConkey
yeah, yeah, true, true.
because we are sorely missing some playmakers on the offensive side of the ball, which I guess let's start there, right? Like let's just jump right in.
Yeah. So like I mean, right off the bat, I will say like there's two things that happened on each of the first two drives, on Alabama's first drive and our first drive. So what, we win the toss, defer, right? We kicked to them. Like we
Which is
stopped,
perfect.
we stopped them. Like we stopped them. We got them off the field. But although it's, I mean, it's kind of hard to say because I guess it was a free play situation. But we're offsides. And we stopped them on third down, forced them to punt, but we were offsides, so they got, they get a do over. They convert, they go down and score. So we had them stopped in the opening drive, but we gave them a second chance on the penalty. Then we get the ball back to match, and like right off the bat, we saw there was, the game plan was different. I think we can confirm that now. Like we had been asking, like, when are we going to see the vertical passing game? Are they holding things back? Why is everything so lateral, etc.? And we came out throwing the ball vertically. First play, completion to Dominic Lovett, down the field, over 10 yards. There's a first down on the first play. And I was like, oh yeah, here we go. Like we're finally getting vertical with Lovett. Let's go. And then unless I'm mistaken, I'm pretty sure it was second play of the game. Shot to Arian Smith. He dropped it. And then it was like that one play, like just took the sails out of everything, you know? And from there, everything was a bit of a disaster. uh, at least through the rest of the first quarter.
I mean, I think that yeah, was it third down or was it a third down play to Arian Smith or was it second down? Because I'm looking at that first drive.
It
It
may have
doesn't
been,
really
I think it was a first down play. I think because the first play was a first down, that
okay.
the first play we gained a first down on first down. So I think it was the second first and 10. I could be wrong.
Yeah, so it was the second play of the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I mean, so, Bobo throwing the ball downfield on first down, like that's the kind of thing we've been asking for. And he did it. And it was there. It was there. Aaron, I mean, I mean, whatever. I mean, it's a fact. Like he dropped the pass. Like it was there, hit him in the hands.
I mean,
Um,
honestly, I think that the if you want to talk about where things kind of where the cracks started happening was, I mean, the third play of the game. So the first play of the game, we complete the Dominic Lovett for 15 yards, and then you have the Arian Smith play,
yeah.
where I mean, you can't ask your quarterback any you can't ask your quarterback to do anything other than to put the ball in a position to where only your receiver could catch it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It was perfect.
It was perfect. He put it on a dot, as Carter likes to say. He dotted it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just went straight through his hands. Like it's that play has been a play that has progressively getting closer and closer. You'd like to see it eventually hit home
Yeah.
pretty sooner rather than later. But that play was incomplete. And then Trevor Etienne had a pass play and he fumbled it.
Yeah.
You remember that was the
Yeah.
play where he fumbled the ball and Dylan Fairchild just happened to be there.
Yeah.
That was the symptom. That could have been another turnover right there that would
True.
have given another short field for Alabama.
True. True.
Um, and then from there, the next play is an offensive pass interference, which, by the way, like, can we talk about offensive pass interference? I have rarely ever seen that called more than once in a game.
It was three times, right?
Three times.
Once on a 2 point conversion. And honestly, the first, not to say we lost the game to the officials or whatever, but like even the first one, I mean, did Lovett push off? Like, yes, he totally did. But I guess it's kind of like one of those, the second guy gets the flag. Usually that's for like a personal foul after the play, dead ball kind of thing. But I mean, he was being held like crazy and it looked like he got frustrated. And so he shoved the guy off of him. Um,
Mhm.
to me, it should have been offsetting. It should have been defensive holding and offensive pass interference. Replay the down, in my opinion. But what do I know?
that was one of the most physical games that I've ever seen
Yeah.
on the boundaries. Like
Yeah.
the wide receiver defensive back battles across the board, because UGA was not immune to that. We had a couple of situations that Alabama fans have like totally whenever you talk about holding or pass interference, they were bringing up screenshots and videos of our holding plays.
And we definitely
Uh,
did. I know the one, there's that, well, there's at least the one that was really bad for us
mhm.
is on 7. And like, yeah, I mean, he totally did. Like, I'm not going to, here's the difference, John. We can admit when we commit it and say, yeah, you're right. Okay, now move on. Let's keep having the conversation.
Right. Um, but yeah, all of that was, you have the fumble, you have the offensive pass interference, which is a drive killer. So you go from 3rd and 6 to now it's 3rd and 21.
Yeah.
And that set up, Brett Thorson to kick off to or to punt to the 17-year-old.
Yeah.
Um, and he proceeded to lose 4 yards. So there was a return,
Yeah.
a return attempt, a return was attempted, but it
Correct.
was for negative yards.
Correct. Yeah. And then like from there, then it was just like we couldn't do anything on offense. I mean, so they go down and score, and then everything just fell apart offensively. I mean, we couldn't do anything. I mean, 20 to
I was
nothing,
getting,
so far behind, and it's like the defense is tired, dead tired, because they
yes,
our offense couldn't stay on the field. I mean, the
that
defense spent like
was
the entire first quarter on the field.
yeah, that is exactly what I was concerned with as well. Let's see, what was it? 2 minutes. We had the ball for 2 minutes and 21 seconds. Then we had the ball for 53 seconds. Then we had the ball for a minute and 29 seconds. Like
Yeah.
it and by the time we got the ball again, so we had the ball what? A minute and 30, call it another minute, so 2 minutes and 30 seconds. 4 minutes almost, we had the ball almost 5 minutes b before it became 28 nothing. It was 28 to nothing at that point, and we only had the ball for 5 minutes,
Yeah. Yeah. It was
which
absolutely wild.
yeah, it was crazy. I think everybody was, yeah, it was definitely full on meltdown mode. Literally nothing went right, and
Yeah.
everybody was just circling the drain, right, on what the heck was happening. I mean, shoot, I'll admit it. We were asking questions on at what point do you make a decision to bench Carson Beck?
Yeah.
Um,
I texted it. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, there was a lot of questions about that. Like, what are we doing? Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember throughout all those different, possessions that we just talked about, or if it was later in the game, but like it felt like that we could literally do nothing right. Nothing was happening.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
we we could not we could not do pre-snap reads right, where the,
Mm,
the the biggest thing was for me was like if I'm Alabama, I'm sending, what do they call it, a zero blitz or whatever,
yeah.
uh, or cover zero or whatever it is, like just send the house on every single play, because we could not figure out the fact that there are 10 guys in the box. Someone is going to be open.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there the whole concept of like let's let's stop doing the things that are not working and start trying some things that can work. And it felt like that Carson just forgot how to play quarterback.
What would my kind of like hindsight question and thing for the coaches to be introspective about is, like I said earlier, it was, to me, I feel like it's pretty clear that we were saving stuff for this game, right? Like we didn't see us, especially not early in the game. Every game, right? It was like start off, wide receiver screen left, wide receiver screen right, edge, runs, all that kind of stuff. And we start off throwing downfield. We were saving that for this game. We thought that's what was going to be effective, and it wasn't on tape. But my question is like, okay, but like maybe our team would have been better off like getting reps doing that in a game before we go into Tuscaloosa to take on Alabama in a top 5 matchup. So, maybe if Arian Smith has been getting those balls early in the game, he's more prepared for it. Because he certainly caught on late in the game. I mean, he definitely bounced back. Had a touchdown catch. Um, shoot, he was our leading receiver in the game, right? So I don't know.
My devil's advocate would be that they're repping those against one of the top defenses, allegedly one of the top defenses in the country, right? Um,
In practice, meaning,
I, in practice,
yeah,
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 they're running those reps against a defense that held Alabama to, but well, I remember it was like we had held them to 12 points at one point in the fourth quarter,
yeah,
so and then they scored late, but
yeah,
um,
yeah,
I mean, we the defense shut them down after the first quarter. And if you were looking for things to blame, I feel like that the defense is not the one that we should be you should be looking at.
yeah.
Not saying that you are, but I'm just saying like
Right.
that defense that they're repping those reps against in practice is elite. The only reason that we were behind the eight ball is because the offense was so inept and was basically just, impotent for three quarters of the game.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we
Um,
we started off punt, pick, punt. Those were our first three drives. So
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about it's a tie ball game basically, in between the first quarter and the fourth quarter. It's a tie, basically, all intents purposes, it's a tie ball game.
yeah, that's
It's
the
a toss
thing.
up.
If we could have done anything in the first quarter, anything.
Right.
If you do anything offensively there, it's going to overtime. You know?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I totally agree. Or we're winning.
Or better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like
And I think,
because
and that's the thing.
14 of those points were off of incredibly short fields from
Yeah,
mistakes that our offense put our defense in.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, the defense. The only thing I'll say about the defense, um, we had questioned like, or we were like, pressure Milrow, get him off his spot, make him uncomfortable because he doesn't deal well with that. I
Mhm.
actually like again, hindsight is 2020. I think we were too aggressive with Milrow. We were sending so much at him. He had an answer for everything. I mean, because like they had someone like just wide open. And he would just throw right to where the blitz came from. Like at least early. I mean, on those first four touchdown drives to go up 28-0. I mean,
That's
we'd get pressure and there'd be someone in his face, but it's just like it didn't matter, because he threw the
so
wide open receiver.
yeah. So I watched when you rewatch the game, like that's what you expect a senior leader, and he's a senior, right? I can't remember what
Milrow?
if he's a senior or junior or whatever. Yeah.
I don't believe he's a senior. I think he's a junior. I'll double check.
That's what you expect your offensive leaders to do when you're a Heisman finalist or whatever, a Heisman candidate level quarterback.
Yeah.
That's what you expect your Heisman level quarterback to do, is to the find where the opportunities are. And from a coaching standpoint, one thing that Alabama did with a lot of success early is, I was watching Brooks break down the film, and I hadn't had a chance to look through everything, but in the brief moments that I did, I had to like walk away because I was so frustrated that Alabama seemed to be able to do this, and Georgia seemed incapable of doing it, and it rests at the feet of the quarterback. We talked about it before the game. As Jalen Milroe goes, so does Alabama. As Carson Beck goes, so does Georgia. What happened?
Yeah. It definitely,
Milroe had the game of his life,
yeah.
and Carson Beck had I think I don't wasn't this like a career high pass? Like it's
I,
not that he did like terrible in the end, but like at
it's
the
the,
beginning,
it's
he
the,
wasn't there.
yeah, no, it's the turnovers. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the turnovers. I mean, he threw for more yards than Milrow did.
Yeah.
Carson threw
440
439
yards.
yards and three
Yeah.
touchdowns. I mean, like if you had told me that was I know you like to do the what if I told you. You told me Carson Beck was going
Yes.
to go for 439 and three touchdowns. I'm like, heck yeah! Like how much did we beat him by? Um, you know. But then it's like, oh, and by the way, he also had three interceptions and lost a fumble. Like, oh, I mean, we said,
The fumble is the one that the
yeah,
fumble, the fumble and the interception that he threw when we were on our 5 yard line are the two series that I look to when we're talking about like, okay, some of those sometimes you just have situations where players make plays, right? Like
yeah,
the interception he threw at the end of the game, uh, I could make an argument for you that Colby Young didn't help him out in any way, shape, or form on that last play of the
mhm,
game, basically. Colby Young is a large human, and
yeah,
he did not use his body in that instance at all in a situation where it is very clearly a play that is designed to be a contested catch, and he didn't contest it at all.
Yeah.
You could argue if it was a bad throw, but the cornerback didn't have any problems going up and getting the ball. Why didn't he try? Like, I don't know. There's
Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah,
I,
it was
that
underthrown, but I get what you're saying.
But going back to the beginning of the game, like his fumble was probably one of the most worst things that I feel like he is currently in a scramble mode. He is running away from a defender. Your
Mhm.
job as a quarterback is to secure the ball so that that doesn't happen. And he did not secure the ball.
Yeah.
The interception when we were on backed up into our 5 yard line or whatever. Again, I am not 100% clear on whether or not that was a wrong route that Arian Smith ran. It seemed like Carson Beck was expecting him to be running a slant that he didn't run, but it looked like it was supposed to be
Different,
a tunnel screen maybe or
different
something. But
pick. That was the first pick. That was the first pick. The one you're talking about was the second pick. And that one, and the second pick, so second drive of the game, I think, was the one where like the tunnel screen.
right,
The
that's
other
the one that
one, the other one was like we're down. Yeah, we're down 28-0, or no, at that point it was 28-7. It's 28-7. We get the ball back, and so you're like, holy cow! Like it's 28-7. We get to the
he
ball.
just
We get
got
the
the
ball to
turnover.
start the second half. We score here. Holy cow! We're only down 14, and we got the ball. And then first play of the game, or first play of that drive was a pick, and that was like a stare down the receiver. Um, then Dan Jackson gets the pick back, but it was just that he caught it. He intercepted it inside the 5, which led to the safety. So that's how that whole sequence went. Um, I will, I do briefly, just since I mentioned his name, I don't, I feel like we have to call out Dan Jackson. Dude had probably the best game of his career. Um,
Yeah.
he
Yep.
was a leading tackler for Georgia in the game, and he had an interception. Uh, Dan Jackson came to play on Saturday night, and there were other guys that did too, but he really held his own.
Yeah, I remember on on one of Alabama's early plays, if you go back and watch the replay of some of the early plays that Alabama had, there Brooks did a great job if you want to look at something that has all the film and all that stuff. Brooks' first 5 minutes of his video will probably make you angry like I did, but then watch it and you'll understand like why things were the way that they were in the first quarter. The good news is, I guess, from a coaching perspective, the silver lining is that the defense and our coaching staff, at least well, obviously on the offensive side, we figured things out.
Yeah,
Don't let any Alabama fans tell you that they took their foot off the gas because they were running trick plays all throughout the game.
seriously,
It
going for it
felt
on
like
fourth
that
down
they
trick plays, they were no foot was taken off any guess. Sorry, keep going.
Right. So, and even Kalen DeBoer was trying to rally his troops, saying that this isn't over. This isn't over, even when they're up 28-0,
Yeah,
and they're taking pictures and laughing on the sidelines. But you watch those early plays, and I'll start with the explanation with what Brooks was saying was that one of the things schematically that Alabama was doing with a significant amount of success was that they were moving people from one side of the field to the other, and it was creating numbers problems for our defense to the
mm,
point where the defense was making no changes. They made no shifts when it was very clearly all of our defense is shaded to this side of the field. The offense just moved their people onto the other side, and they have a numbers advantage on the play side that's eventually going to go. They did that all throughout the first quarter when they were when we were when they were running their offense, like what was happening when they were moving those players over was that it was reestablishing a new edge. And the new edge was now a problem for UGA because all throughout the season is that we have trouble establishing an edge.
yeah,
Like you've got to establish the edge on this guy. You can't lose contain, blah blah blah. Well, the problem is that when you move the edge, it changes the dynamic of the play because all of a sudden you have a numbers advantage on one side of the field. That edge becomes irrelevant.
yeah, and
And you could see them running those plays over and over again at the beginning of the game. Like I said, I haven't gotten to the end of the game, but obviously we figured some of that out as the game wore on. Unfortunately, again, the offense put the defense in some tough spots, but they eventually figured it out. And I think they even went from a 3-4 or 4-3 to they actually had a different scheme in the second half that Alabama was very clearly having struggles with because they couldn't do anything. I mean, in
Yeah,
the second half, they only scored 12 points, like
yeah,
11 points.
yeah. It was totally, and it was totally flipped. Like you said, like our fourth quarter was basically their first quarter, but they mixed the score in, although it was on the last play of the game or their last, whatever, before the kneel down.
Hmm.
I think here's what kills me about that. And like Kirby has come out and admitted it. Like we had a listener question from Jonathan DeGiel, and sorry, Jonathan, if I'm not saying your name properly. Uh, I hit me up the pronunciation guide. He asked us like, how is Kirby going to outcoach DeBoer? And I'll give Kirby and staff credit on in-game adjustments. We figured stuff out. We didn't, you know, I do say like sometimes he can be stubborn, and I feel like we did make adjustments in this game to shut things down. So kudos on that. But what's disappointing is that we had 2 weeks to prepare, and we were not ready for what they were doing. And I think Kirby has come out and
Didn't
said they were doing things that we didn't hadn't seen
Yeah,
on
that's
film, right? And it's like,
yeah.
well, yeah, I mean they had 2 weeks to prepare. Um, and he also, I mean, and he said after the game, like, we weren't ready at the start. I'm paraphrasing. I'm not going to get it exactly correct, but he was, basically 21-0. He was like, we weren't ready at the beginning of the game, and that's on me. And like, I agree. Like, that's the hardest pill to swallow of this. We flipped the script, we turned it around, and I mean, the sheer entertainment value of this game was off the charts. I tweeted something about like that may have been one of the best. I think I said the best. I was whatever day after trying to be a little bit happier about things. Like that's one of the best regular season games of college football, SEC or at least SEC football that I've ever seen. And it's hard to think about that kind of stuff when it's a game that your team lost. But I mean, you had like everything in that game. You had a 28-point lead. They got totally wiped out. The last 2 touchdowns of the game were both one play drives, of over 50-yard passes. Ours was 67 yards. Theirs was 75. I mean, the game, that game was nuts. For like the casual fan that has no rooting interest, that must have been amazing to watch. And I mean, I guess for Alabama fans, it's amazing to watch, but whatever.
that's what my buddy was saying was that he was at the end he was like that was a good game of football.
Yeah, and it was. It was. I try to not lose sight of that. When we play in a great game and lose, like, yes, it stinks, and yes, I was dejected. Although, even though, sorry, Josh, that game didn't matter. Like I, I try to
That's what I
think.
kept telling myself too. Yeah.
Yeah, but I do still try to think like, man, I just saw an awesome college football game. Like my team lost, but that game was amazing. And shout out Ludicate when he replied to my tweet and said like that was the best football game that Georgia lost that he remember since 2005 Auburn, and I totally agree. That was another fantastic game. Horrible ending, but another great game. So I try not to lose sight of things like that. That was a heck of a football game. It lived up to its billing. I'll say that.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree that we eventually got to the game that we were expecting.
Right.
It
That's
is
a good way.
unfortunate.
That's a good way to say it. Yeah.
It eventually got there, but the way that we arrived there was quite painful.
Yeah.
And I think that if you replay that game 9 times out of 10, I have a feeling that we get a game that is more like what we saw towards the end, where it's a
Yeah.
tight game.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
I agree.
at the end of the day, it took 4 turnovers and a safety for Alabama to have that result.
Yeah.
4 turnovers and a safety, and we still had an opportunity to win the game in the fourth quarter. Like
Yeah.
if you told me, hey, JP, it's going to be 28-0, you got 4 interceptions or 4 turnovers, and oh, by the way, you gave up a safety as a carrot on the top of that, I would have said, oh my God, like what was the score? 75-0? Like what was it?
Right.
The worst loss in UGA history? No, it just came down to we had the ball inside the 10-yard line, and with an opportunity to win the game, first down, was it first and goal?
We're at like the 20.
First and goal?
We're at the
We
20.
were at the 20.
Yeah.
Okay. We were in the red zone,
Yeah.
which, by the way, Bobo cooked up a lot of great red zone plays all throughout the game. So um, I I like our chances. I like our chances in that situation to win.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it didn't turn out that way. Like I said, we just talked about that earlier. I think that there are things that the quarterback could have done better. It had shades of 2012 SEC championship on it. Like
Yeah.
we get down to the goal line and something terrible happens.
Yeah, there's a couple of things like strategy wise. I will say one thing I don't like. I know, and I'm sure some analytics people like, or I don't know what Josh's thoughts are on this. Are like, I don't understand why we kept going for two. Honestly, like, I don't know that there was ever a need to go to two for two. I mean, like the first touchdown, it was what 28-7. I mean, it's a four-score game no matter what. I don't like chasing points. And my ultimate point is at the end of the game, Georgia had 34. If we'd just kicked the extra point every time, we would have had 35. And like Alabama would not have been able to go up by 7 at the very end of the game. Ultimately, it did matter because we threw a pick, but like at worst, it would have been 41-35. And it probably would have been 40-35 because they wouldn't have gone for two to go by 6. Or maybe they would have. I don't know, to force us to make an extra point or something. But like either way, Georgia has the ball to win at the end if we never go for two, if we just kick it every time. So I don't know. That's a get off my lawn. I don't like going for two unless it's
So
like right at the end.
uh, as we'll probably mention a few times, but the devil's advocate there is it was halftime and it was 30-7 and we were 15-30 later in the game.
Yeah.
Um, at that point, that's two touchdowns and 2-point conversion. So like that, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah. 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 But that wasn't what
so
the
I
score was
think
at
that
the next time.
his
Like the other
his
one where we went for two was we were trying to make it a 10-point game. So because
right,
it was a 12-point game, we tried to make it 10. But and I know I have the benefit of hindsight. Um,
right.
but because it just I don't know.
At the time, I
We
feel like
lost
that he
points for
was
going for
thinking.
two.
At the time, I feel like he was thinking that points may be hard to come by later in the game, which
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know,
I get
you
it.
know.
I get it. I don't
But
know.
hindsight, like you said, hindsight's 2020. But um, you certainly would like to you would like to allow them to not tie it up.
Yeah. Again, I get, it didn't matter. The only other thing was, and like again, this is definitely like Captain Hindsight thing. Man, like that last did the one play to Dylan Bell do us in? Like what if we that like if there was ever a time to do a Kirby Death March with a touchdown at the end of it to win the game, that was the time. Never give the offense back to Alabama. So whatever.
Oh, right, right, right. Yeah, the
You know,
Kirby Death March. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. With
We
52 seconds left. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, we scheme up.
Or yeah.
Well, no, at that point there was so when that
You score at 52. We
yeah you
scored in 52.
right we scored in 52 seconds. When we got that ball, there were 2 minutes and 42 seconds. When we got the ball, and we had a one play touchdown drive. If we take some time off the clock, again, hindsight. But
I mean, the
although
flip
it
side of
has to
that
have
is
0 seconds on the clock, apparently, with considering the play they ran.
yeah, I was about to say like
uh,
we kind of got it. So we scored the touchdown, and then Alabama scored on one play the next time,
yeah,
and then what happened after that? It was the Kirby Death
yeah,
March.
it's
He
true.
engaged at the end of the game
You're
when we
right.
got the ball back. I think that they realized, oh shit, like we need to put this thing together, and he did. Like we carved them up like a hot knife through butter for 11 plays. Was it 55 yards?
Yeah,
And I mean, a minute and 35 seconds. We were in a hurry up situation, but like we got 11 plays off in that drive,
yeah,
and we still had four more potentially on the plate, but we only or three more left on the field. But he threw the interception on the first play, which by the way, like talking about the comparing the 2012 game, that's exactly what happened. So if we're ever in this situation again, dear Bobo, like fade to the back corner, like can we just not do that? Like because that's what he tried to do in 2012 too. Like we got to the line and we tried to call the first play. We could have spiked it and thought about it, but like the very first play when we got close was he tried to throw up a fade. They thought they had something in the back of the end zone. They thought they had something in the back of the end zone with Colby Young, which
yeah,
frankly I think was a pretty good play call had he thrown it right and put it in a position where only his receiver could catch the ball. Because good Lord, dude, like that's another thing I would like to talk through is that for 3 quarters, I was screaming at the TV, why aren't you throwing the ball to Lawson Lucky, Anthony Evans, and what was the other one,
It was,
Jim?
I think Dylan
Also,
Bell, I think is what you were
Dylan
saying.
Bell.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like, why aren't we targeting these guys more throughout the game? And we did.
We
Like,
started doing it. Yeah.
one of our touchdowns literally was all three of them combined for the touchdown.
Yeah.
I think that was I think that was Cash Jones, Arian Smith. No, that wasn't it. But anyway, I was just looking at one of the drives, but um we put together a drive that I've been begging for all season long, all game long, and frankly, the last two games from Kentucky, because Lawson Lucky was a ghost in the Kentucky game. And
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to say it, but like, I'm not sure what's going on with Oscar Delp and Carson Beck, and I I don't want to sit here and blame NIL, but it's hard not to notice that the players that are flashing all of the bling, for lack of a better description, are the players that are struggling on the field right now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Carson Beck and Oscar Delp, frankly, Tate Ratledge hadn't been having that great of a season before he went down, but all those guys are wrapped up in all this NIL stuff. Nate Frazier has also been on some of these, and he is
Well, he's not. I mean,
unable to,
He
he's
didn't
not
go
even a
in. Did
factor.
he? I don't. I haven't looked at like snap counts or anything, but I don't remember him being in there at all. I know he didn't get a carry. I don't think he saw the field. Um.
Right.
Yeah.
Like there are players with high caliber, parade All-American type stuff, whatever you want to call it. They're highly regarded, first round draft pick caliber people, five-star recruits, people that we had a social media campaign, Delp as a dog, whatever. Like those guys need to start playing up to that caliber that I know that they can. I mean, we've seen flashes of it in the past, but until that happens, I feel like we got to start asking questions of some of these guys. Like, are you the
Yeah.
right person for this job? Like Lawson Lucky and to quote the coach theory, the moment wasn't too big for him, and it wasn't too big for some of these other guys.
Yeah.
Let them play more.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I feel like Lawson Lucky needs to be starting tight end. Um. So we, I, I do remember at one point I texted Josh, like 13 personnel because there we did have a 13 personnel play. That's one running back, three tight ends. But anyways, I don't remember it actually doing so great. But yeah, no, dude. I
Yeah,
mean,
but
and like, but the Georgia offense, like, you know, like what are we going to see from here on out? Maybe we get into this more when we preview the next game. But like, what are we going to see? Like that was the thing, and I know we have some questions about this, so we'll definitely get into it. Like what is our identity, kind of thing. So maybe we just talk about that in the next episode. But I felt like, I guess my hope is we found our offensive identity when our back was against the ropes and in this game, and we saw it for throughout the rest of the game, until literally the last. I mean, the last interception. I feel like we found it. Can we keep that going forward? I mean, the difference of where we are now versus at the end of the first quarter, just on not only like narratives but also like what you can say to your team. I mean, this they did show me a lot. And I don't want to get into like moral victory type stuff, but like a lot of teams would fold, um, and lose, like you were saying earlier, like 52-0 or 52-7 or something. I mean, these
I
guys
mean,
had the lead. We took the lead.
TCU in the national championship, Florida
Exactly.
State in the bowl game. Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
So they showed a lot of fight, and like I definitely like started busting out all the Kirby sayings and texts at that point, and I was like, "We just got to keep chopping." It's like, you
Yes,
know,
yeah, you did keep chopping. Yeah, exactly.
uh,
We just gotta keep chopping.
they did keep chopping.
And they did keep chopping.
They
Yeah.
did. They did. I feel like they need to do more with assume nothing. I think they need to assume nothing more. And I will say maybe the only thing like at the very end, to go back to a rigged one, we did not finish the drill. We had it right there, and I mean, again, like you said, this game isn't on the defense, and I don't think it is. Even though we fell behind 28-0, I think that had a lot. The defense eventually adjusted, but also we're not down 28-0 if we can do anything in the first quarter. But like it's like you can only hold him for so long. I mean that Williams, like that's what he does, and it was gonna happen eventually. And unfortunately to us, it happened twice. I mean he had two circus plays. That kid's good.
Yeah,
the juggling catch, and then the one at the end. Dude, his body control is insane too. Like his spin moves after he catches the ball, uh, is impressive. He is that kid's good, and they're gonna have him
he's
for well,
he's very clearly he's very clearly one of the best wide receivers in the country, and I would
yeah,
say that, arguably he's a better wide receiver than Travis Hunter is.
yeah, yeah. I think that's fair. He was impressive. He was
That said,
as advertised. He was as advertised.
he was as advertised, and he is definitely still 17.
Oh my gosh, how many times did
Um,
they say that? Whatever the over was. Like
the
if you
over
were
under.
playing a drink every time, if you were playing the Ryan Williams the 17 drinking game, like how was the hospital later? Like it was uh
Yeah, I mean, I think that we did. We played him about as well as I feel like we could have. I mean, yes, he torched us on two plays, but beyond that,
yeah.
he was fairly quiet. I mean, you say beyond that, what it took was it took frankly Milrow underthrowing a ball, which our cornerback basically overran, and he was just better prepared for it and better positioned to change his run and to go up and catch the ball. Like hats off to him, great catch. The other
Yeah.
one is literally you run that same play 9 times out of 10, a deflected pass. Are you kidding me? And he somehow pops it up in the air. It had prayer. It had like totally reminded me of like the prayer at Jordan Hare.
Yeah.
Like 9 times out of 10, that's an incomplete pass. It just happened to be on this night that they got it when they needed it, and it is what it is. But those two plays, beyond that, like yeah, he had some great passes, but they weren't backbreakers. Like you gotta prevent the backbreakers on that guy, and I thought we did a pretty good job. Otherwise, I mean, they definitely. And if you go back and listen to the preview or from our preview, like we talked about that, Milrow is going to have to find other sources for for passes because basically almost 80% of their offense was two wide receivers, and that definitely panned out for one of them at least.
Yeah.
So
They did spread the ball around a
they
lot.
spread the
That
ball around.
they actually did more like what we usually do, you know? I
Hmm.
mean, he threw to I I forget how many receivers, but it was a lot.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
It was not ideal. They had the field goal guy come out there at one point. I was positive it was going to be no good, but he
I know.
squeaked that goal in. Like that was another one, like the field goal.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that we learned a lot about this team. I think that they're still kind of meshing. I mean, particularly at several positions where we've got hurt guys. I mean, one player that's hurt, which sorry, I don't make the rules, but apparently when one of your better players is hurt, like the loss doesn't count.
Oh, it doesn't count.
Um, I've been really excited to see what he's got, but kid's been suffering from mono, so he didn't get a chance to go out there. That's one of the wide receivers that I would look for
Yeah.
because he was showed out against Clemson.
I lost you just for a second, so just in case, London Humphreys. You can keep going. That's
Yeah,
what you're talking
London
about.
Humphreys. Yeah, did I not say that? I thought I
No, you
said
did. I lost you for a
that.
second. Keep going.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, London Humphreys is not out there, so I'm sorry that your win is invalidated from losing one of our better wide receivers. Sorry, our fast, our exciting whites.
Yeah.
We're down too many exciting whites.
Yeah. Yeah. Shout out to Trey.
We need we need the high quality crackers.
Oh man. Dan Jackson has entered the chat, by the way.
Dan Jackson. I don't think I finished the my Dan Jackson diatribe, so I'll use this as the opportunity. But
Okay.
I don't think I finished that. Like the first few plays of the game, like you could see that Dan Jackson had done his homework because in one of those plays where we were talking about moving people around and they were resetting edges and all this kind of stuff, and you could see from the snap, wide receiver went into his motion, and almost immediately Dan Jackson was downhill on his sorry, Carter, uh, and just came in like a heat-seeking missile. And that's something else that I'll talk through. I don't think I saw Dan Jackson miss any tackles. That is probably one of the more concerning things if I had to like pick on the defense.
Yeah.
Um, we missed tackles left and right. We knew that this guy was shifty, Milrow in the pocket. You had to bring him down when you got home, and we got guys in his face. we just couldn't get him down. We
Yeah.
couldn't keep him in the pocket, and he absolutely murdered us on those escapes, which we know, like, this isn't our first rodeo with this guy. You just can't let him get out of the pocket like that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when he or the running backs or Ryan Williams, like whoever it was, like we were missing tackles left and right.
I
That
mean,
is
the
probably one of the most concerning things that I have, and I think that the announcers even mentioned it on, some of these replays. Like, man, it's just a sloppy play. Just not used to seeing this many missed tackles from the Georgia team, Kirby Smart coach team. I'm not sure what it is. I saw Malachi Starks lose some money in this game because as great as he played from a like I thought that we had coverage on most of these guys. Like, I mean, even the long touchdown pass, I thought that it was good coverage. He
we had
was
decent coverage on the long plays. It was those short intermediate ones where they, or I guess early, or I don't know. I felt like a lot of it where the guys were just wide open. But yeah, on the deep
I
balls,
mean,
we were kind of there. Other than that wheel route. Oof.
some of those things that we were talking about where the guys were open early are schematic things that they just
That we
were really
adjusted on
good at,
later. Yeah.
that we adjusted later in the game. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, we would send a corner blitz on, and the Ryan Williams, I think it was the first play of the game. We sent a corner blitz in, and that guy was, for whatever reason, we sent the corner blitz from Ryan Williams, and his route was, he was doing a go route, but I think that he was looking back and was looking at the cornerback and what he was doing,
Mhm.
and he immediately changed his route. Like, that's what Brooks was saying. Like, when you see the wide receiver looking back to see what the situation is, he was looking to make sure that the cornerback was continuing to go, and he just stopped.
Yeah.
He stopped and he was wide open. And Milrow saw where the corner was coming from and immediately knew, I've got a wide open pass here and I'm going to throw it. Like, that's the kind of stuff that they were doing. Like, we were trying to throw wrinkles and pressure and outside keep, all that kind of stuff that
Yeah.
we want them to do. He's just making a good play. Like,
Yeah.
and some of those were going to happen, but those eventually dried up, and to the point where if you go back and look at the final drive, um, you could see it in his face that, like, Milrow was like, you could see he was Munsoning hardcore on the Alabama sideline because he was not comfortable, and he was a far cry from the jokester that was laughing and making comments like, I don't know if you remember, what was the game? Maybe it was 2020 when the Florida quarterback was like, we're gonna we're gonna kill these guys. We're gonna score at will whenever. Like, you could see him mouthing things on the sideline when we were getting absolutely torched by Florida, and that's kind of what was happening on the sideline in Alabama. But by the end of the game, things had shifted a little bit, and he was not nearly as comfortable. Now, after the game, he was quite comfortable barking at everybody and all that kind of stuff, whatever. But
Yeah.
um, he was definitely jawing at people at the end of the game. Um, I have a feeling that, just like the fourth quarter comments, that they're gonna remember how they were treated at the end of this game.
And they're gonna remember Ryan Williams' Twitter profile picture too. Did you see that? He
I think I
changed
did, but what was
he
it?
changed his profile picture to a picture of Michael Vick holding a dog.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
And he busted up the Dirty Bird.
Yeah, which that doesn't really make sense, but whatever. Like that doesn't have
Is
anything to
he
do with
is he from
Georgia.
Atlanta? I don't even
I don't think
remember.
so. I thought he was from Alabama. By the way,
Uh,
I looked this up earlier to answer and forgot to say it. Milrow is a junior. Sorry, that was like a while
Junior,
ago.
yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
so unless he decides to cash it in, which if I was him,
oh, he's
probably,
gone. He's gone after this year.
yeah, I mean, I would think he would be. He seems like he might be climbing up the quarterback charts based on how he's performed against one of the better defenses.
Yeah,
So,
I guess we got to wait till the season ends, but I would assume. Okay, I want to one thing really quick, and then we can go back. I do want to say, you extended your lead in coaches over unders. You went 5-3 in the over unders. I went 4-4. So you extended by pick. You have kept chopping. So good job there, JP. Thanks, coach, for tracking those and sending over. We had a good Twitter thread going with coach on Sunday, kind of the day after postmortem stuff in the morning helped us a little bit. So thanks, coach, for that too. Um,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Let's just say that this loss feels a lot different than some of the losses in the past of similar caliber.
Yeah, I agree. I did want to bring up this is you and I were texting about this. Like some of this is like me joking about regular season games don't matter because of the playoff. Like honestly, I do feel like that has helped me cope with this loss. I mean, if this happened a year ago, um, it would have been much more devastating for me. I don't know. That's just kind of my feeling. Alabama lost at home to Texas last year, made the playoff. Granted, that was a non-conference game at the time, but I feel like that's helped me a little bit. But
It
the
still doesn't matter if it's a conference game.
yeah, yeah. But I think the other thing was I was going to read a tweet that I saw. And sorry, I'm trying to pull it up. So it was Val on Twitter. Um,
Oh, okay.
this is was kind of what I texted you about this to tell you to help me talk through this. It was she said some people have forgotten what it feels like to lose. She said some people have forgotten what it feels like to lose, and it shows. We've been spoiled and blessed as a fan base. Being a dog fan is a lot like a marriage, through good times and bad, in sickness and in health, for better or worse. I'm here for my dogs till death do we part. Um, I do think, like I think a lot of us, and I was definitely doing it in the first quarter when we were down 20-0. But we have forgotten what it's like to lose a regular season game. And that's where I feel like the whole like even after the loss, I do feel like some people still need the Kirby calm the F down gif. We witnessed
For sure.
the longest regular
Can
season.
confirm.
Yeah, we witnessed the longest winning streak in regular season SEC history. We hadn't lost a. I mean, we went 12-0 3 years in a row. Um, we can't do that forever. We're gonna have to lose a game eventually. Um, so yeah, I don't know. It was bound to happen, and would have felt a lot worse if it just kept going the way the first quarter did. I don't know.
It would have felt worse. In your defense, like I feel like it's not so much that we've forgotten how to lose. We just have gotten to the point where this particular matchup is of elevated importance for reasons that are unreasonable. Um, it's gotten to the point where it's very similar to the Georgia Florida rivalry during the Richt years. Like, and frankly, even before that, you know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah,
like we just can't figure out a way to beat these guys. And that's like, this is fortunately for us, like, this has been against a team, until this year where they were in another division and, couldn't ruin a season for us on something like that, like the Florida games usually were, which is why that's a rivalry and this isn't. I digress.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but yeah, it's just we had to lose that way to those guys again.
yeah.
Josh DocStats put out a metric today, which he's put out a lot of numbers that can help some folks kind of frankly, it might not help you if you're on the offense is awful situation, but
Right.
they are numbers nonetheless. One of the numbers that he put out there was the four losses against teams that are throwing more than what was it, 9 yards per attempt or something like that. Um, anyway, uh, all four of the losses, three of them were to Alabama in the last several years here. One of them was Florida in 2020. Um, and you go back and look at all of those losses against teams with good quarterbacks, basically. Um, our turnover margin in those games was 11 turnovers.
Yeah,
Like across 4 games, you're throwing 11 turnovers. I mean, much like this game, 4 turnovers
yeah,
in one freaking game. That's a significant amount of turnovers against the team that we historically have had to play virtually perfect against. And we still had a chance to win this freaking game, guys.
yeah,
Like, I cannot stress enough that the the coupled uh, the coupled message there is that, if we don't turn the ball over half the time, we probably win that game.
yeah, yeah,
We if we if we just execute, even I mean, shoot, just forget all the other turnovers, like the last turnover. Like if we don't
yeah,
throw an interception on that first down, like I like our chances of winning this game running away, like walk off.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
we got our asses kicked. We got our asses handed to us from the bell. and we still figured out a way to Rocky these guys up. Unfortunately, we weren't singing about Adrian at the end, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. At the end of the day, um, I liked what I saw from this team towards the end. There are definitely red flags all over the place. Josh, I know, I see the numbers, I see everything. I have a feeling that this team is slowly coming into itself. And I'm just going to ask everybody to just wait and see because fortunately for us, Jalen Milroe is not going to be trotting out for any of the remainder of the regular season. And I like our odds against a situation like that.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you. I'm right with you. They, again, this team, they showed us their resiliency. I know that's one of like our team's pillars. They've definitely got that. So, you never know how a team is going to respond. And like I said, it would have been easy to say, this game is over. Um, but it wasn't. So,
My hope is that this isn't a game, and this is something I'll be looking forward as we roll forward, and maybe this is a good caveat to, pivot to the next episode or whatever, but to turn the page, if you will. But my hope is that Carson Beck, if I'm Carson Beck, I'm probably pretty upset that that's the way that it ended.
yeah,
I like the story arc of him coming back in that situation and not throwing that last interception, but to even get to that position to overcome like what had to have been just such a difficult like head game
yeah,
for a kid that has had the reins, had the opportunity to take the reins and wasn't able to take them earlier in his career. He's fought through adversity at the University of Georgia, and last season we came up a little bit short as well. Um, to do it in that fashion, uh, to be against those odds and to be in a position to win in the fourth quarter, you talk about things like confidence builders. I hope that he doesn't. I hope that he doesn't have a backtrack as a result of this game, and I hope that he can look mentally at the positives. And I feel like that the support there was exhibited by the head coach at the end of the game when he made it a point to embrace every single player as they walked off the field, which
yeah,
I'm hoping is a confidence building situation. I don't know of any. I haven't heard any of the recordings of any of the things that Kirby said after the game, but like in the locker room, that kind of stuff. But
yeah.
like I'd be curious to know what he said both at halftime and at the end of the game.
Right. Yeah, for sure. No, I agree. I agree. And the other thing to think about is at the end of the day, this may have just been game one of a three-game series this season. So
Jeez Louise.
it's
We could
possible.
play these guys. We could play these guys two more times.
I will say, so Brett McMurphy, he used to write for like CBS. He's like at Action Network now or something. But that was his take. He said, that was game one of a three-game series, and he actually had his AP poll. He's an AP poll voter, and on his ballot, he put Alabama number one, Georgia number two, which I thought was
Mm,
interesting. Chip Towers has
that is
Georgia
interesting.
at eight, by the way, but whatever. So yeah, so we're what I don't even remember what we are. We're fifth, I think. At
Yeah, which is
which
frankly a lot better than I thought.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I not to get on a rankings diatribe, but to me, like, if beating Georgia is so impressive that it vaults Alabama up to number one, like, we shouldn't be dropping too far because that's illogical to me. But whatever.
Carter was Carter was getting wrapped around the axle at our ranking. He's like, gosh, how did we drop to five?
Yeah,
Like, I was like, Carter, those numbers are monopoly money. Like
yeah,
it literally doesn't matter at all.
yeah. They mean that means even less than regular season games.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
God, Josh is totally gonna text me. We've already been texting about it.
I think I think that I don't know, maybe it's three-dimensional chess that
Yeah,
we're trying to angle for the perfect spot, third place in the SEC.
that's right. It's the perfect spot. It's the sweet spot. It's the sweet spot. All right.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
We got Auburn comes to town, homecoming, right?
Yeah, it is homecoming. Yeah, it's so weird.
Yeah, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah.
But we got homecoming coming up. I'm hoping that this will be a level set situation and we can further hone that offensive identity, which I don't know that I'm prepared to answer that question right now.
Yeah.
But I feel it feels like that they're figuring it out on the fly, which unfortunately, some of these big games had to happen in the beginning of the season as opposed to the end of the season. So it is what it is. We've
Yeah.
got more big games coming up. I have a feeling that we're gonna see what this team is made of the rest of the way through. Um, yeah, we'll meet between the hedges this Saturday, and we'll kick off homecoming with a good party, and we'll take it from there. Go
Amen.
Dogs.
Amen. Well said. Go Dogs.
Shop Macy's VIP sale going on now. Use your coupon or Macy's card and take an extra 30% off the latest fall trends from designers that rarely go on sale. And save 15% off skincare, makeup, fragrances, and more. Plus, shop fall specials for even more great deals on top brands at Macy's. Savings off regular and already reduced prices. Exclusions apply.